Well, hello and welcome to the Bricks and Mortar Leadership Podcast, where we use God's Word to teach us principles that show us not only how to live daily, but how to lead daily. My name's Kyle Milholland. I am the president of Bricks and Mortar Leadership. I am so thankful that you are joining me on this journey for what will hopefully be a very rewarding experience for everyone who listens to these shows. And I'm so thankful that you have joined me. Really, when we take a step back and we look at leadership in the world today, a lot of times, we're being taught and we're seeing how people are being taught the world's way. And I think any of us that have spent any time, close proximity to God and in His Word know His way is far superior than our way. And while we use God's Word a lot of times to show us how to live, really what I found over my 25 plus years in leadership and having mentored hundreds of people and been mentored by some really great leaders is that God's Word, cover to cover, has some fantastic stories and passages and examples for us on how to be great, solid, strong, godly leaders. And all of the leaders in my life that I really respected and really looked up to all used God's foundational leadership principles in their everyday life, not only at work, but at home. And really all these things that we're going to talk about not only will make you a great leader at work and wherever you go in the world, but will make you a better husband, better wife, better father, better mother, better brother, better sister, coach, pastor, athlete. It really doesn't make any difference because these principles transcend leadership and really pass into everyday life as well. For starters today, our first show, we are actually going to look at the topic of delegation. So this show is titled Leading God's Way, Delegate Like Jethro. So we are actually going to use the story of Moses meeting up with Jethro after the Exodus today to really highlight a beautiful story so clearly. It's one of my favorites in the Bible on the topic of delegation. And, we see early on in our Bibles that God really almost starts off the Bible with one of the first examples we see is actually delegation. Because the minute man is created, the minute Adam is created, God is ultimately delegating all authority and dominion over the earth to him, right? To him, to Eve, to be able to look over the animals and look over all the earth. It says that God brought Adam the animals, and whatever he named them, then that's what they were. And so we can see very clearly early on that God had delegation in mind even when he made us. And we also see throughout the Bible that God oftentimes uses delegation, and most of the things that are actually done in the Bible are done on God's command, but they are carried out by someone else. It's God by proxy, right? God is ordering whatever's being done, but someone else is carrying it out, whether that be angels or humans or whatever the case would be. And so we see that very clearly. And delegation is so critically important for a leader because you have to be able to give things to people to share the workload. The higher you climb in leadership and the more people that you have reporting to you, there's a reason for that, right? You can't handle the workload by yourself. And I see this being a huge failure point for a lot of leaders in my years in leadership. I have seen this several times, especially new leaders, because they struggle to make the transition from doer to leader. And they still want to get in there and they want to do everything. And that really causes a lot of problems. But I've also seen the opposite in my time in leadership, right? I have seen many leaders who have become very lazy and they delegate everything to their teams and then they do pretty much nothing. And that can tend to erode the morale within a team very heavily. So delegation is one of those things that it's a careful balancing act, but when done properly, when done God's way, it is absolutely miraculous what comes from that. And, it's kind of one of those things where it is also necessary to help grow someone else in leadership. When we're delegating to them, we're trusting them. And we're going to see all this stuff today in this story. It's really beautiful. But that one specifically is really key. And it kind of reminds me of a saying that I'm really fond of. You may have heard it before. If you take a man fishing, you can feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime. Before we dive in today, I just want to say, if you are interested in finding out more about Bricks and Mortar Leadership, head over to my website, bricksandmortarleadership.com. And hit the resource tab while you're over there. We have a ton of great resources for you. You can find all of our podcasts over there. We have a blog based on the podcast as well, in addition to videos and a free leadership guide that you can actually download that will help you with communication and accountability, two passion areas for me. Without further ado, let's get into today's lesson. So to just kind of set up the backstory of this a little bit, this is after we have come out of Egypt. So Moses has led everyone out of Egypt at this particular point. We're going to pick up in Exodus chapter 18 specifically. And we are now in the wilderness, and we've kind of set up shop. And what's happened is we can see in the Exodus story that Moses actually led, they say 600,000 men in the Bible is what it says, out of Egypt, but we know that that only included the men and probably did not include the head count of the women and children. And also, we kind of read in the Bible, sometimes we overlook, that a lot of the Egyptians fled with them. They're like, hey, forget this. I'm out of here. The Pharaoh's going crazy. He's causing chaos for us. We're leaving too. So you can imagine the head count here is probably well over 1 million people. And as the sole leader at this particular point, Moses is now playing overseer to all the people's problems on a daily basis. And then you can imagine with that many people, that's pretty much all he's doing. And at this point in the story, he has now traveled back to where he originally came from before he went back to Egypt to bring everybody out. And he is near the land of Midian. So he's near where his family is and his father-in-law is. And his father-in-law, Jethro, who is actually priest of Midian, and very well respected, which we'll see in the text here in a moment, has come to visit him, has brought his wife, his children, and is kind of observing him doing this with all of the people. And he's taken aback a little bit by what he sees. And the exchange and the advice and everything we see is just a beautiful story of leadership. So we're going to get in today. We're going to pick up in Exodus chapter 18, and we're going to start in verse 5. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. And when he sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and 2 sons with her. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. So we can see right here that Moses has a ton of respect for his father-in-law. And really, this brings up one of our first key points for today, which is, do you have anyone as a leader, do you have anyone that you respect deeply that you can go to for counsel when you have questions or when you have problems, or that will oversee and kind of observe what you're doing and maybe have a blind spot and provide you feedback? So they can be a great resource to you to help you grow. And they asked each other of their welfare and went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had come upon them in the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done to Israel, in that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because in this affair they dealt arrogantly with the people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. So again, we can see here there's a tremendous amount of respect that, one, Jethro is obviously coming and he's rejoicing with them. So he's a kind of a cheerleader in this case. He's like, yeah, you did great. I'm glad that God's done this. It's fantastic. And, he's brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to kind of show his honor to God as well. And you can see the respect that not only Moses has for him, but also all the elders and Aaron, who is Moses' brother. We continue on. The next day, Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood around Moses from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone, and all the people stand around you from morning until evening? And Moses said to his father-in-law, Because the people come to me to inquire of God when they have a dispute. They come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make them know the statutes of God and his laws. Moses' father-in-law said to him, What you're doing is not good. You and the people will certainly wear yourselves out, for the thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. Now obey my voice. I will give you advice, and God be with you." So there's a couple things here that I want to pause on, and I want to go back to the first thing that I highlighted there. And really, it's this whole thing. The beauty of this story is not only are we going to get a great example on how to set up a delegation structure and the importance of setting up a delegation structure, but the other bonus that we're getting today is there's a really great leadership lesson in here as well on how to provide constructive feedback to someone and how to correct kind of behavior that you see that is really detrimental. So we kind of follow a pattern here. So what you see is the first thing that Jethro does is he actually observes what Moses is doing. All right. He just kind of stands back and he's watching what's happening. And then as he sees what's happening, he knows that this is probably not good, right? So then he goes, and even though he has a good suspicion of, this is not a good thing, he observes and kind of sees this all day long. So he's got his mouth closed and his ears and his eyes open. And that's one of the really important things that we need to do as leaders, because I think sometimes our first reaction is to jump in there and fix it, right? And sometimes we need to just take a step back and be more thought out than that. One of the things that I found as a leader is very rarely did I need to jump in and make a decision right now. I could take the time and really think about my approach and be more calculated than that. And what that really helped me with was it helped me make one decision instead of making 3 bad decisions and then the right decision. And I would throw my team all over the boat because I felt like as a leader, I needed to take care of everything right now and fix everything right away. And sometimes a slower approach to be able to really thoroughly observe and follow, a process winds up being a better solution for us as leaders. So then we move on kind of to the next thing that Jethro does. So now he's observed all day. And the next thing that he does is he goes up to Moses and he asks this question. He says, "What is it that you're doing for the people? Why do you sit alone and all the people stand around you from morning until evening?" So Moses tells him, "Hey, I'm pretty much been the only guy that's been doing this. They come to me when they have a problem." So then we kind of go to step 3. So now Jethro has observed. He has asked questions to clarify, right? And now he goes into providing feedback. Jethro then provides feedback and tells him why what he's doing won't work, right? He doesn't sugarcoat it. He's kind to him, but he tells him directly, "Hey, man, what you're doing is not good. Here's why. Here's why it's not going to work." And then he goes on and he says, "I'm going to give you some advice, and God be with you after you do it. So you shall represent the people before God and bring their cases to God, and you shall warn them about the statutes and the laws and make them know the way in which they must walk and what they must do. Moreover, look for able-bodied men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of 50s, and of 10s." So now we kind of move into the next step of this process, which is, okay, we've identified that you have a problem. I've observed. I've asked questions to get clarity. I've stated you have a problem and that, we need to correct an issue here. Here's what you need to do in order to fix it. So this is the next step, right? And he tells him how to set up a delegation structure. And ultimately, this is the fix for the problem. And he is instructing Moses like, "Man, you got way too many people to be doing this all day long. You need to set up this delegation structure, and here is how you do it." So he is now providing him the direct solution to his problem. But the other thing that he's doing here is he's saying you need to make sure that you get the most trustworthy people to put in these positions. One of the biggest things that we can do as a leader is to find the right people and get them in the right positions and then trust them to do their job. There is nothing that will be more detrimental to you as a leader than having the wrong people in the wrong positions, or you are then hovering over good people and micromanaging them. You need to put them in position, show them how to do their job, and trust them to do their job. You need to provide them support, and you need to check on them and make sure everything's okay from time to time. And obviously, they should know that they can come to you at any time if they need anything. But really, ultimately, as a leader, we are supposed to nurture those that work for us, and we need to do that through trust. And if you don't show somebody that you can trust them, then they're never going to trust you back. So this is a really important thing that we kind of read in between the text here as well. So we continue on. Let them judge the people at all times. Every great matter they shall bring to you, but any small matter they shall decide for themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, God will direct you. You will be able to endure, and all this people also will go to their place in peace. So really, ultimately, what we see now is we see the why. Here's why it's not working. Here's the correction. Here's why you need to do this. And the why so many times gets lost on us as leaders. People, if they really respect you, they will follow you blindly when you ask them to do something. But really, as leaders, we should really hardly ever find ourselves in a position to do that. Why is one of the most powerful motivators for people. We have inquisitive spirits by nature, and we want to know the reason behind something. And if you tell someone the reason why you're asking them to do something, they are much, much more likely to follow what you are asking them to do. So this is a powerful tool right here that we can see on the tail end of this that really doesn't take that long, and it kind of connects everything together. But so many times as leaders, we fail to do this, and everything before it crumbles away when all we needed to do was explain the why behind the ask and to get people to change their course and their behavior and convince them a different way is better. All right, so let's kind of recap for today. 1, you can see in the beginning of the story, we had a ton of respect for Jethro. Now, there's a couple components to this. One of the things that I want to cover as well is if you have in your mind that you don't need any instruction and that you already know everything, it's really hard to fill a cup that is already full. Okay? If you've already got your mind completely convinced and nobody can talk you out of anything, you're going to find yourself on some dangerous paths. So make sure you have an open mind and an open heart to receive the feedback that you may be getting to course correct. Because ultimately, if somebody's willing to come to you and willing to do that with you, they probably care for you. And if someone cares for you, they have your best interests at heart. Number 2, others had much respect for Jethro. How about you? Do you listen or seek the advice of those you respect? We talked about this in the very beginning as well. You really need to have people around you that you can go to seek advice, that are willing to stand in the gap and actually come to you and provide you some critical feedback in order to help course correct you so that you can be a great leader. 3, Jethro's actions: observe, ask questions, provide feedback, provide the detailed correction, and then provide the reason and outcome of change. Take your hands off and let them either listen or not. So we, again, covered all of the aspects of how Jethro provided this critical feedback, right? And this course correction. He observed, he asked questions, he provided the feedback, he provided the detailed correction, like what we need to do to fix it, and then he provided the reason and the outcome, right? Powerful way to give someone corrective feedback. But then the other part of this is that when we do this as leaders, we need to step back and let them do it. We need to let our people, whoever if we've provided clear coaching, clear counseling, clear instruction, we have to take our hands off and let them either listen or not. And I think one of the things that we are so terribly afraid of nowadays as leaders is failure. One of the greatest ways for people to learn is to try and fail, because you will ultimately learn more from that a lot of times. One of my favorite sayings is, I've learned more in defeat than I have in victory, because those things really stuck with me, and it allowed me to become a better person and a better leader because I knew what I did wrong, and I remember those lessons very clearly. So we need to provide the feedback and then take our hands off and let the people either listen or not. And then last, Jethro instructs Moses to pick men of integrity who he knows he can trust and put them in leadership positions. Again, find the right people, get them in the right place, and then trust them to do their job and provide them support. So be a hands-off leader. It's good to check in. You don't want to be completely, vacant as far as a leader. That's not good either. But you definitely don't want to micromanage, and you don't want to hover. That's not what a leader does. And this is a huge part of mentoring too. You have to be able to let them do for themselves. Teach them to fish. All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that today, and hopefully you are excited about the podcast. If you want to check us out on social media, all of our social media out there. We got a ton of different places that we're on. Go ahead and give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, and a share on all of those. And again, if you want to find out more about Bricks and Mortar leadership, you want to tap into some great resources over there, or you want to actually get in contact with me, you can actually go to our website, bricksandmortarleadership.com, and you can click on the book your free consultation button, and we'll schedule a time, a 30-minute window of time to actually talk about your unique problems with your team, and I can help provide a solution for you. So thank you guys very much. God bless.